Hi there, this is Frank Brill, editor of EnviroPolitics. In this episode, we're going to look back at just a few of the interesting stories that appeared in the past week in our daily newsletter, EnviroPolitics. And this would be for the week beginning April 10th. Let's get right to it. Jake Flanick reported in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette that state environmental officials in Pennsylvania are working to put out an underground mine fire that is believed to have been burning for 4 or 5 decades. You heard me right. Not 4 or 5 years, 4 or 5 decades. The fire, deep in a coal mine that was abandoned in 1914 in the Renton area of Plum Borough, is considered only a minimal threat to public health, but it has prompted intervention over the past year by the State Bureau of Abandoned Mine Reclamation. The Bureau is finalizing plans to, quote, completely eliminate the fire, said Lauren Fraley, a spokeswoman for the Department of Environmental Protection. In New Jersey Spotlight, Tom Johnson is covering a story that's of significant importance to opponents both in Pennsylvania and New Jersey to the Penn East gas pipeline. Tom reported this week that the Federal Energy and Regulatory Commission had issued a final environmental impact statement for the project, and that step likely will be followed by FERC approval of a certificate of public convenience and necessity once that commission adds a member and gains a quorum. This is not the end of the battle, however, but it definitely switches tracks. The pipeline builders now face scrutiny by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection and the Delaware River Basin Commission. Tom Gilbert, campaign director for Rethink Energy New Jersey and the New Jersey Conservation Foundation, said, FERC's flawed review of the Penn East project failed to thoroughly examine the significant environmental impacts the pipeline could cause. On the other side of the argument, Dot Tron, chair of the Board of Managers for Penn East, said, their finding, meaning FERC's finding, is a clear win for the region, business competitiveness, economic growth, and job creation. So we'll be following this story for a bit yet. And speaking of natural gas pipelines, the state of New York, the state environmental regulators there have blocked the development of a second major pipeline that would have carried natural gas from Pennsylvania's shale fields to New York and other markets. The Associated Press reports that New York's Department of Environmental Conservation informed National Fuel Gas Company on April 7th that it was denying a water quality permit for the 97-mile Northern Access Pipeline to western New York, saying that the proposal endangered wetlands, streams, and other habitats. The permit denial came about a year after DEC derailed the 124-mile Constitution Pipeline from Pennsylvania to eastern New York by also denying a water quality permit. Constitution is appealing that decision. National Fuel said Monday that the state's rejection of the energy infrastructure projects is not sustainable. The headline on Tuesday in the Record in northern New Jersey was Pompton Lake prepped for a second summer of dredging. James M. O'Neill writes, dredging will begin again soon in Pompton Lake in the most extensive phase of the 3-year, $50 million cleanup of runoff from the nearby DuPont munitions plant, which left the lake polluted with mercury, lead, and other contaminants. The dredging is expected to begin later this month or early in May. We're on schedule, said Elias Rodriguez, a spokesman for the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, which is overseeing the cleanup. About 128,000 cubic yards of contaminated sediment will be dredged from a 36-acre portion of the lake bottom near the mouth of Acid Brook. The second phase follows last year's initial dredging, which removed nearly 29,000 cubic yards of sediment. That amounts to about 2,000 truckloads. O'Neill goes on to report that the cleanup is the responsibility of Chemours, a spin-off company of DuPont. Chemours hired Stevenson Environmental Services as the contractor for the cleanup. In New Jersey, the United States Department of Agriculture is trying to spur a comeback for the Bobwhite, and it's now accepting applications from farmers and landowners in 7 New Jersey counties who are interested in installing conservation practices that can help the bird's population recover. With a decline in suitable habitat, the bobwhite quail population in eastern North America has declined by more than 85% since the 1960s. The government is offering financial and technical assistance to eligible landowners to implement a variety of conservation practices, including the development and implementing of forestry plans that include such activities as tree thinning and prescribed burning to improve forest health. Moving to Delaware, the Wilmington metropolitan area has experienced 97 days of smog pollution and 212 days of unhealthy levels of particulate matter, according to Environment America's Our Health at Risk. This is all bad news for ozone, which is likely to increase and cause more lung diseases, asthma attacks, and hospitalizations, especially in children, said University of Delaware professor Christina Archer. Back in Pennsylvania, Laura Legere, Legere, reports for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette that Pennsylvania legislators have not yet formalized a plan to assist the state's financially struggling nuclear plants. But opposition to even the hint of a bailout is uniting the natural gas industry, other power plant operators, major manufacturers, and AARP. They have joined as Citizens Against Nuclear Bailouts, and their 17-member organization and companies so far include the Marcellus Shale Coalition, the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association, the Pennsylvania Chemical Industry Council, and AARP. They said on Tuesday that they oppose any relief for the nuclear power industry that would raise electric rates for consumers. Last month, legislators from both parties and both chambers of the General Assembly announced that they had formed a nuclear caucus to promote the state's 5 nuclear power stations and to explore ways to ensure their survival as part of Pennsylvania's diverse energy mix. The caucus now includes 73 members, but legislators are early in their exploration of the issues and have not yet decided on a strategy. Returning to New Jersey, Tom Johnson reports in NJ Spotlight that the state is proposing to tighten an important rule to limit pollution from factories and other businesses that emit a contaminant linked to many respiratory ailments and other illnesses. In a proposal in the New Jersey Register late last month, the DEP is recommending adoption of federal rules governing fine particulate matter, or soot, or soot if you're from Philadelphia, a pollutant believed to cause tens of thousands of premature deaths a year. The new regulations are designed to maintain the state's compliance with the federal air quality standard for particulate matter, a standard that New Jersey only achieved 4 years ago. If adopted, Johnson writes, the new regulation would require major sources of the pollutant, approximately 270 facilities, and about 18,000 minor facilities, to use best available pollution control technologies when seeking new permits to increase emissions of certain pollutants from their plants or businesses. Now, here's a depressing story, and haven't we already read too many of these? The Associated Press's Dan Joling reports from Anchorage, Alaska, that repair work is underway for a pipeline that has spewed hundreds of thousands of cubic feet of processed natural gas into Alaska's Cook Inlet, which is a home to endangered beluga whales and other marine mammals. The 8-inch diameter pipeline supplies gas for power to 4 Hillcrop, Alaska production platforms. A spokesman said Monday that divers over the weekend had discovered a 2-inch hole at the bottom of the pipeline where it rests on a boulder in the seafloor. Divers have identified the leak location and are working to prepare the site to allow for the installation of a temporary clamp, Lori Nelson said. A more permanent fix will follow. Cook Inlet covers 180 miles from the Gulf of Alaska to Anchorage. Besides beluga whales, it provides habitat to humpback whales, stellar sea lions, northern sea otters, and important salmon populations. Now, we can't end on such a depressing note, so we want to report that our blog this past week carried a video produced by Brenda Flanagan of NJTV News, in which Brenda reported that back in 1975, New Jersey's osprey population had plummeted to fewer than 70 breeding pairs. But this year, the latest count shows 515 nesting osprey couples and 150 breeding pairs of eagles, most of these along Barnegat Bay at the Jersey Shore. A lot of the credit for the restoration of these animals no doubt goes to Conserve Wildlife Foundation of New Jersey. It's a nonprofit that builds and repairs marshland nesting platforms for the birds. The organization is facing potential funding cutbacks, like many other folks, and is seeking volunteer support. Well, that's it for today's show. But we want to remind you that if environmental issues, news, legislation, and regulations in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, and Delaware are important to you, check out our daily newsletter, EnviroPolitics. That's one word, EnviroPolitics, with a capital E and a capital P. You can receive the newsletter free for 30 days. You'll find us at www.enviropolitics.com. And also check out our free EnviroPolitics blog. You can just Google it. The same for our Enviro-events calendar. Thanks for listening and for reading, too. See you next time.